Hello, and thank you for joining us for this live session, Instructional Design from the Ground Up. I am here with Dr. Chuck Hodell, and we are going to be discussing the subject of how to choose, what things to consider about graduate school if you are considering going to graduate school for instructional design. What are these things that you should be considering? Chuck is going to walk us through all of the different things that you should be looking at, considering. There are 6 critical areas that he's going to be talking about in this session. So, Chuck, I'm going to hand it over to you.
No, don't do that.
Yes, I am. I'm excited to be part of this conversation. I am a graduate student, and this is a really important subject. There's a lot of considerations that people should look at, and maybe they don't know that they need to be looking at these things. I certainly didn't. I really didn't.
Yeah.
I chose my school because I
go there.
Well, I work there, and I know the program. So that's why.
Yes. But after so many decades of advising students on what was best for them, whether it was a graduate program, an undergrad, even doctoral programs, there's certain things that everybody needs to look at. And while we will focus on instructional design, you need to look at this from the perspective of anybody thinking about a graduate level degree or a certificate or participation at any level. And whether it's instructional design or whether it's one of thousands of other content areas that you might be thinking about for grad school, these things apply. And while we will focus specifically on instructional design kinds of things, the general 6 areas that we talk about are all pretty much the same across the board. Mm-hmm. And certainly as we look at these 6, this is not the most inclusive list that we could have, because the show will be less than 30 minutes instead of 30 hours, because if we put everything in here that you might want to think about, it would be in great deal. What we're going to try to hit is the 6 big things to consider when choosing a graduate program. So as we look at this, and I want you to put yourself in a position, and sometimes you just get to the very basic questions of, do I even want to get into a graduate program? I may already have a graduate degree. I may have a terminal degree, PhD, ED, or whatever. And why would I possibly want to do something else? And what I found over the years is there are a lot of people with terminal degrees. There are a lot of people with master's degrees that want another master's, especially in instructional design, or they want a certificate in instructional design, because that adds something to their portfolio of things that they can present and different things that they can do. And like a lot of subject matter experts, what you find is they are certainly beyond prepared and qualified in their field. When it comes to instructional design, sometimes they want that little bit of paper to show, I can do both these things. I can be a great subject matter expert and a great designer. So as we go through this, don't just think this is for people that don't have graduate degrees. These are for everybody to think about. And some will apply, some won't. We'll just have to talk about them. So the things that I would consider, Denise, are career advancement potential. So can we enhance what you already have? Total cost. There's a lot of things in costing of credit hours and degrees and certificates that people probably know at some level, but I'm going to show you some very specific things to think about. You need to look at program leadership in the faculty. Okay, who's leading this program that you're thinking about getting into, and what's that faculty look like? Are they qualified, etc.? We'll talk about those things. Course delivery options. Many programs now are online. Some are blended, some are still brick and mortar. You have to decide which is the best package for you in terms of that. Want to look at program community. Okay, what's going on in this program that you're looking at besides just the classes? What's the larger extent of this community? What else do they have to offer you as a student, as an alum, as someone who's probably thinking about employment options? And the last thing is intangibles. These are things that perhaps don't fit in one of these categories, but which we think are important for you to consider. So as we go through these, let's see what you think. If you're watching and you have some chat questions for us, let us know. If you're watching this in post, certainly put comments in there and we will answer those, as we always do. So let's start with career enhancement. You need to look at specifically what you want to have when you're done with this process, certificate, degree, what have you. What is the fit for the program that you're looking at? Is this covering the content that interests you and it's of value to you? Is it peripheral to that? These are kind of judgments that you're going to have to go through and look at and think about very seriously. And one thing that people really underestimate the value of is the name of a program. And the name of the program is what's going to be on your degree. So it's going to be a degree in X or a certificate in X. And you have to ask yourself, if you want to be in instructional design, don't you want your program to be an instructional design program by name or some derivative of that? And if you're in doubt about the name of a program and the value that it has for you vocationally, and either looking for new work or getting promoted where you're at, put the name of the program in a search engine. Put it in a job search engine and see how many positions come back. And I know if you put instructional designer in, you're going to get just an unbelievable number of hits. Some of the other things that program names are now called might not get you very many hits. And you have to ask yourself, do I want to be in competition for a position with 200 other resumes, and I want to be an instructional designer, but that's not what my degree or certificate says? So you have to think very seriously about this. And this is something I think that people think about afterwards and not when they're making this preliminary choice. So program reputation. When you look at reputation of a program, do it in the immediate past. There are people that were in a program 10, 15, 20 years ago that will tell you how great it is, and it may not even be the same program. You have to talk to people that have recently graduated or recently started in the program and see what their impressions are of what's going on. Don't go back to an alum that has no connection to the program. It hasn't for a number of years, because that information will be less than valuable to you. If you've had a program that's rebranded or has changed its name recently, I think you have to think about that. There's a reason why that happened, and you need to find out what that reason is. And I'll just leave it at that. So any other significant changes in programs? And I would ask, what's different about your program than what we had 5 years ago or 10 years ago? And just see what they say to you. And you should be able to get answers for those kind of questions. So now let's look at cost. And this is something that really sneaks up on people. And I hate to say it, but some of you will be reimbursed by an employer, or if you work at a college or university, you may be able to get free tuition up to a certain point. Then this discussion is different than some others. But the biggest thing I've seen that people catch up in is in-state and out-of-state tuition. And there's a total cost for these things. And some institutions have an incredible spread in the difference between in-state and out-of-state. And sometimes out-of-state is defined in a way that doesn't make a lot of sense, because sometimes you can be out-of-state and be in-state. So sometimes when programs are in large metropolitan areas, the Metroplex might be in 2 or 3 states, which is what we have in the D.C. area. You could be Virginia, District of Columbia, Maryland, and even stretch that to West Virginia and Pennsylvania. And you have to look at C, because there might be a Metroplex allowance for in-state, but you have to ask. That's usually through the registrar's office. So costs for a master's or PhD, costs for a certificate, fees. Sometimes fees, I can't even make sense of them, but I never could understand why online people need to pay a recreation fee, but I think that still happens in some places. So let's look at this example real quickly, and I'll give you an idea what I'm talking about. So these are 2 institutions within the same state, within the same, essentially the same programs in terms of the university. It's a university system, but 2 different parts of that system. So institution A, in-state per credit $679, out-of-state $1166. So now you're thinking, okay, so if I'm taking a 3-credit course, that's $1,461 for the course. If I'm taking 4 courses, the difference is $5,800. And for a 30-credit program, the difference between in-state and out-of-state tuition is $1,410. $14,610. So that's one institution. That's their rates. That's fair. I mean, that's what they charge. Institution B, in-state's $504, out-of-state $659. So the difference is quite a bit less. The difference for in-state and out-of-state is $930 for a 6-credit course. Certificate, assuming 4 courses, the difference would be $3,720. And for a degree, the difference would be $5,580. So if you look at the two, in-state for one is $20,370, and for the other is $18,144. Out-of-state for one is $34,980, and the other one's $23,724. So essentially $11,000 difference out of state. So these may or may not apply to you. I think what's important here is that you do the homework and find out what it's going to cost you. And make sure that you're comfortable, if you're considered out of state, sitting in the same online classroom with someone who's paying significantly less than you for the same course. And there are programs that it's worth it, maybe worth it to you for a lot of reasons. But what I see is people get into this and then they realize that this is going to cost them a lot more money because of their particular situation. As I said earlier, if you're getting tuition reimbursement or if you work for an institution, you will get some kind of credit for that. But this, you can't ignore this part of it. It's a lot of money, and you need to be up to speed on this. So Denise, what do you think about those numbers? I mean, this is something you think about, right?
Yeah, let's go back to those numbers. That's definitely something to think about. I mean, there is a significant cost difference with out-of-state tuition. And, I know in this area, the regional state tuition for the Maryland, D.C., Virginia area, they take that into consideration. But, if you're living in California and you're looking at institution A or institution B, that's a big difference between the two. And so, yeah, it's a really big difference. But this is just one part of the equation, right? There are other things that you need to consider. And the things that you mentioned previously when you were introducing this topic. And then, of course, going into our next thing, the leadership and faculty.
You got to look at these things. Mm-hmm. So as we look at this, look at who runs the program. Who is this individual? What kind of research background do they have? What are their publications? Have they written books? These things are important because someone who runs a program should be in high standing in the field, no matter what the field is, instructional design or what have you. And the way you generally show that, even in applied programs like instructional design is often considered, you still want them to have that research background. You probably want them to have a terminal degree. You want them to show that they've published in publications. If they've written a book or two, that's not a bad thing either. And the other thing that I think is always important, and I will stress this over and over again, is do communications with directors and faculty and see how long it takes you to get a response. So send an email, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm thinking about this program, what are your recommendations or whatever, just general communication, see how long it takes to get a response and see what kind of follow-through you get. And if you get a good communication, a quick communication, a good follow-through, and you have a good conversation, then you can feel comfortable about this. If it takes a while or you don't feel comfortable with what you get back, then you have to ask yourself, I'm not even in the program, but this is what I get. What am I going to get when I'm in the program? Can I expect it to be any better? So not that this is always an issue, not that it's ever an issue, but I have seen this be a problem in the past. And I want all of you to think about this and test the waters a little bit. It's fair enough to write and email folks or call them and just see what kind of response you get. And same thing for faculty. Now, in instructional design, a lot of faculty are adjunct, and you have to look at the qualifications. Okay, what have they done in the field? Usually they always at least have a graduate degree. Maybe not a terminal degree, but certainly a graduate degree. And you want to look within a program and see what the ratio is between full-time and adjunct. And there are programs, I know one college system in California where 70% of the credit load has to be taught by full-time faculty. And I can almost assure you that in most applied programs, especially instructional design, the ratio of full-time to adjuncts is nowhere close to that. You're going to find that adjuncts will probably teach a fair amount, if not a majority of the credits. So you also want to look at their research and publications and books. So wherever they worked, what do they bring to the field? What can they share with you as a student about this? Do they have jobs in the field that they've been in for a fair amount of time and they've got a lot of experience in it? These are the kind of things you want to poke around. And I would also communicate with them. I would send emails and ask questions about their courses and see what they're saying to you, see how long it takes to get an answer. And as I've advised students over the years, some of them have said to me that they never got a response from an instructor in their undergrad programs in 4 years. And sadly, sometimes graduate programs are not much better. So you need to test those waters. You spend that kind of money, you deserve to get responses and follow through. So let's think about format, because now, I mean, gosh, last couple of years has taught us that online is safe and steady. And if you can be there, that's probably a good place for most of us. Blended, you have to consider the fact that blended means you have to be on campus at some point. You can be online part of the time, but you still have to be close enough or be willing to travel to get on campus for certain things. And obviously brick and mortar, if that's what you choose, just make sure that you have the availability. But I would say most programs now, maybe Denise, you can kick in here, but I think probably most programs have an online option, at least from my experience.
Well, for instructional design, I think that you're accurate with that. Absolutely. There are certain programs within graduate schools that, of course, are blended, hybrid, or totally in person. But just, I would say that's really an important consideration. I know it is for me as a student. Online is the way I want to go.
You got to think about that. Plus, anytime, any place, if you do async, that's a good thing for a lot of very busy people. Term length. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't think about either, but some schools are 15-week traditional terms, so fall, spring, maybe summer are 12 weeks, but a lot of programs are 8 weeks. I've seen some 6-week programs. So right now, I teach in an 8-week program. And actually, I like it. I mean, it's busy, but I like the fact that we're constantly in contact, and I feel very close to my students in an 8-week format because we all know we got to get it done and do whatever. The other thing you want to think about is there's different course loads in terms of credits for different programs. So some programs are 3-credit courses, some are 6-credit courses. You have to think about whether that matters to you. I think that's more of a mental issue in terms of that, because it all ends up the same anyway. But with the thought of a 6-credit course seemed to be more work to you than a 3-credit course, which obviously it would be, but is something that you'd find difficult for you to get around. Starting options. Now, here's something that I think is really interesting. There are programs that you can start almost every month or every 4, 6, or 8 weeks. Some programs you only start fall or spring. It just depends on the program, and these are questions you need to ask. If you're in a hurry to get started and you can start in 3 or 4 weeks because that's the next rotation, then to me that would be much more appealing than having to wait till the next term rolls around, and who knows when that is. So just something to think about. And the last thing is learning management systems. So there's all kinds of these out there. Blackboard is probably king of the hill, but there are others. And if you're used to one from your undergraduate work or other things you've done, are you willing to learn a new one? And it's something that's probably not going to be a make or break for you, but I think it's something you need to think about because there's always a ramp up time. Everything in LMS is different from one to the other. They're generally the same, but there are distinctive differences. And if it's important to you, then that's something you need to think about. So program community. To me, this intangible, I didn't put the intangible group because I think it's too important in that, but you've got to find out what's going on in this program. Is there an active alumni group? Are they supportive of students? Do they reach out? Do they provide job opportunities? Do they provide feedback, with their work? Or is there a mentoring program? Is there other things going on besides you just taking a class and moving on? Some people are perfectly happy to do that. Just do the basics, take the course, move on. But there are a lot of times when alumni can really make a difference. And you're going to find, especially in instructional design, that most of the jobs and most of the contacts you make are within a small community. So the more people you know, the more you find out about positions, the more you can use them for reputational things like recommendations. And I think any program that doesn't have an active alumni group supporting students is something that I would be concerned about. And the second thing is student engagement. So as a student, is there a newsletter in the program? Do they have events? I mean, I can remember programs that I was in that we had an event every month. There was a luncheon, there was something. program I teach in now, there's something every week for students. There's a live session every week with a different topic and a different presenter. And these are the kind of things that build the background, that support the courses you're taking, that allow you to engage in the community. And if a program doesn't have these kind of student engagement tools, I mean, even basics like a newsletter, why, if you don't get a newsletter at least every term, I would have to ask, why not? I mean, why don't you want to know what's going on with other students? Why wouldn't you want to know if there's new courses in the program or new faculty? If there isn't that communication, you have to ask yourself, what are they doing? And I would ask whoever you talk to, do the research, find out. What do you offer me besides the ability to take a course? And I think, Denise, you thought that the outreach part of this was really important to you.
That, yes, because when you posed that question on LinkedIn, that was my response is, I really want to engage with students and alumni because I believe in networking, having a rich network. I interview a lot of students for the university that I work for, and that is the number one outcome when they talk about the satisfaction that they had. The biggest outcome is the rich network of people that they have developed in the programs that they're under. We have a whole bunch of different types of programs. And so I also agree. It's one of the reasons why I got involved in a graduate program. I want to be involved. I want to learn from people. And I don't want to sit in a silo all by myself and try to figure everything out. It's really important to have that feedback, that peer engagement, faculty engagement, all of that is really important.
And I think in a field like instructional design, I have to say that most of the jobs and most of the good things that happen come through the network. It's very rare that someone just pops into this field and is successful or moves up in this field without this body of other students that they've gone through programs with and body of alum and faculty that they've worked with. This is a very tight community. It's easy to break into, but you have to have the tools to be able to do that. So ATD, ISPI, all these other groups are important. But within your program, you need to have that community there to support you. It's not just taking classes if you want to get ahead. So intangibles, director, faculty, and support representatives. Okay, what's their responsiveness? We've already talked about this, but I think any student should test the waters and see what kind of responses they get. Enrollment pattern. Okay, I think it's fair to ask, what are the enrollments for the past 2 or 3 years? Are they up, down? Are they even? You don't probably want to get into a program that's going downhill. And one way to find that out is to see what the registration pattern is. So is this a growing program? Is this a healthy program? Or this a program that's not able to fill sections, that it just doesn't seem like it's doing as well as it could? These things are important to you because the reputation of this program and what you get out of is going to be based on the things that are happening within it. And this is usually a pretty good barometer. The health of a program is where it is with registrations and other things. So ask, and they should be able to tell you that. Faculty level of experience in teaching. And one thing you find in applied programs, there's a lot of very talented people, but not all of them are good teachers. And one thing that I found that students have found frustrating is when they're in an instructional design program and they get into a new course and the syllabus doesn't even have objectives in it, or it's not clear how they pass the course or what they need to do. If there aren't well-written objectives or there aren't well-written evaluation requirements that allow you to know what you need to be able to reach mastery, just kind of look and feel stuff. So if I were you and I was thinking about getting into a program, I'd ask for some syllabi. I would take a look. I would, okay, is this a well-designed course? If this is an instructional design program, wouldn't you want it to be a well-designed course that would act as a role model for what you want to do and for what you want to design? So not saying that any of these things don't exist, but what I'm saying is you need to be checking it out. Look and see, make sure that these things are out there for you. And there you go. So 6 different levels. Denise, what did I miss? What would you add to this?
Well, not that I would add anything, because I think you just pinpointed everything really, really well. Some things that stuck out to me that I really do want to emphasize are really important is I would look at the adjunct versus full-time faculty. One of the reasons why, for me, the reason why I would do that is I love learning from people who are actually in the field, rolling up their sleeves, doing the work. Absolutely. I want to hear their battles, their triumphs. I want to hear what is actually happening right now, not what happened 20 years ago. Right? That's really important. Especially in an applied program, especially for instructional designers, applied programs are really important. Theory is very important, we know this, but that applied experience is paramount to your training, and it's got to be part of their curriculum. And learning from people who are actually doing the work is paramount. So that was one of the things. And also, I know when I was researching to see, okay, is instructional design, is this graduate program what I really want to study? Because I want to make sure. So I asked for syllabuses, for syllabi. I asked for that, and I did receive, quite a few in order to be able to determine, yes, this looks like stuff that I want to learn. This is really great content. And that was really how the deciding factor for me was doing that due diligence research and not being afraid to ask. It's if somebody is leery, not going to give you that information, I'd be a little concerned about going to that school.
I would be checking out, checking into something else. I mean, here's the thing: you're all consumers of this product, and the one thing that I've had to drive home repeatedly, my role as a provost in other areas, is we work for students. Okay, our whole life is students. Everything we do is for students. They are the center of everything I ever have done and everything I ever will do in academia. And if it isn't in the best interest of the students and it doesn't further what they want to accomplish, then I don't think we need to be doing it. And, there's all the things that we talk about, but I think in terms of faculty, you can tell who's on the ball and you can tell who hasn't touched their course in 20 years. And all the students know this. And when I was advising, I knew that because every one of them told me. They would tell me which courses they liked, and they would tell me which courses they didn't like and why. And they would tell me which people communicated with them and who never answered an email. And all this stuff, it's all part of any program. There's no perfect program. There are programs that are better than others. And I think as someone who is consuming this service, who is paying good money to do it, that you have a right to ask all of these questions and get these answered. And then you'll make an intelligent decision that's best for you. And even when I was part of programs, and I've been part of, 10 graduate programs probably in my career, I never once recommended a program, even the one I was in. I would always say, I want you to choose the best program for you. If it happens to be this program, then I'm thrilled. If it doesn't happen to be this program, then let's find the best fit for you. Because I don't feel like my role is the salesperson. I'm not in marketing. I'm in finding the best resonance between the student and what their desires and their dreams are and the things they want to accomplish. So maybe I'm an outlier in this area, but students to me are first. Frankly, there's no second place. And I think as you're looking at these things, go get the information, find out what the best fit for you is.
Absolutely. Another point that you brought up that I thought was really important as well is the alumni networking, the having sessions for having a way for students to interact. I think that's really cool that the school that you're teaching for right now, they do that. They have
every week.
They have these sessions. That is something that would be really powerful and a really great way to build connections with alumni, with current students, with faculty, with thought leaders in the industry. It's bringing all that together in, I know it's a lot. I mean, I know I'm in marketing. I understand that we do a lot of events and it's a lot to put these things together.
It is, but every week. In fact, I was asked to do the one this week. And I couldn't because we had a death in the family, and I'm going to do it later on in the term. But I do these every term, and it's wonderful not only for the students, but, I'll be selfish. I just enjoy the heck out of it because I get to talk to students that I had a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever, and they pop in and they'll ask silly questions and we'll giggle, and it creates community. It's not like Chuck is broadcasting information. It's us building community and having a discussion. And I think that any graduate program that doesn't have weekly encounters for students really ought to look in the mirror and ask themselves what they're doing. If all you're doing is packaging courses and sending them out, then you're missing the mark. You're missing the target. There are some great models out there of programs that are doing it right.
Yeah. And I think that it's a really great opportunity for programs to look at this, to look to their alumni, to be able to say, okay, like, come back to campus, or come back to campus virtually even, to be able to share what you're doing out in the world right now. I think that's a great idea. That I think about back when I went to Rhode Island College, I was in the communications program, and they did that. They didn't do it every week, but they did it every quarter. They had people come in who were graduates of the program and talk about what they were doing. Yeah. And that was so powerful to me. And, I moved away from Rhode Island, and I always thought, gosh, I would love to be able to go and speak at one of these events with them. And just,
But see, that's the beauty of it. And we used to have once a month luncheons. People said you can't have luncheons because people won't come because they're working. Well, I had some that we had almost 200 people there at a luncheon for just one program.
Really?
And I'd do job fairs. I would have people come in and set up tables. So every luncheon was not just a luncheon. We'd have a presenter. Yeah. But it was always tables with employers looking for people to do instructional design work. Huh. So it had so many different purposes. And those are the kind of things that build community and build program. And when someone attends something like that and they see that that's the program that these people are in, then they want to be in that program. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get enrollment. That's how you build programs, is build community.
Right.
And, I've seen it done so well, and I know it can be done well. I know it is being done well.
And just coming up with a system to be able to do that. Let's see what Mona is saying. Certainly,
Hi,
alumni of the program are a great asset and resource. Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I really couldn't agree.
So, Mona, since you're on here, what's the one thing that you would look for that you would think was most important if you were making a decision about a program that you would want to attend? And I'll sing here for a second while you can answer.
Well, actually, while Mona's doing that, David Adams had sent me a message beforehand because he wanted to know, Chuck, what you think of the word understand.
Did he send you that? David!
Chuck's here. Chuck's here.
That's part of the TikTok. Oh, David, I got things.
Isn't that cool, huh?
He sent that to you, huh?
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness! What else? I don't want to know.
I was like, how am I going to get this into this program? How am I going to do this? And I was really racking my brain about this, David, because he's going to watch this in post-production. He's in Las Vegas right now. Anyway, I was really racking my brain thinking, David, how am I going to work this in? This?
So both of you are on Chuck's list, just so you know. And I know where David is. And I know where you're at.
Wait till you see the TikTok. Wait till you see the TikTok.
Did he show you the TikTok?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
This was
so now I'm
touch.
a TikTok. I am now TikToking. How would apply skills in the real world? Exactly. So what we want, Mona, and I think what you're looking for is programs where you can use it the next day. So if I'm going to design a course, I want to know how to write objectives, do a design plan, do all these things. I want to learn from people that do this for a living. I don't need a theoretical background except to build a platform to learn how to do what I want to do. And that's the difference between applied programs and theoretical programs. So most of the people in instructional design get PhDs, not all of them, but most of them want to do the theoretical stuff. And God love them. Go for it. But there's a lot of people that just want the practical side of it. I want to be able to do this work. And that's why my PhD is not in instructional design. I want to go out into another field so that I could broaden what I had in terms of the things that I could offer my students. I felt I was where I needed to be in instructional design. So fun and accessible. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Mona, don't you think community is one of the things that you look for in an online course or in a classroom? That you want to feel like you're part of this community, that you're a contributing member, that people are bringing things to you that excite you about the field, excite you about what they do for a living, have facilitators that are doing great and exciting things and involve you in it. I mean, when I was a student, I can remember sitting in the early classes of my graduate program, and I was thinking there were people that were doing this for a living, and they were exceptionally good at it. And I felt like, I'm never going to be that good. And some would argue I never got that good, but, that's kind of a different issue. But the whole point being that I always felt like I could reach out and talk to them. I had something to grow to. And I think like that was the brick and mortar days. It was a different world, but we spent so much time outside of class talking about our careers and what we could do to help each other. And this job is open and that job is open, and we can do all these things online. We can create that community and support and nourish and encourage. And
Absolutely.
I don't know, maybe I'm nuts, but I just think community is what it's all about.
It's
making
really
students
important.
whole.
That to me is one of the most important things. I can't imagine, for me, going through this graduate program without knowing you and without knowing all the people that I'm meeting through you, through LinkedIn, through YouTube, through this channel. Yep. That enriches my learning experience. And without that, if it was just school, it would have been a totally different experience.
Learning is not one-dimensional, right?
No, it's not.
If learning is just attending a course, then learning is one-dimensional to me. I think learning needs to be three-dimensional and four-dimensional. Mm-hmm. I think you need to be able to touch it. You need to nurture with it. You need to be able to more than one. So the old notion of one and one doesn't make one, it makes five. And, just this whole notion of creating this group of people and group of learners that, this is about us doing what we want to do and getting better at what we want to do and sharing this with other people and creating, probably the things that I'm proudest of are all the people that I hired, all the designers I hired that came out of programs I taught in. And I started to do the math the other day. It was over 100 designers that I've hired over the years. And they were all from these programs. And I'm not the only one. There's lots of people I could name names, but I would not name everybody, and then it wouldn't be fair. But there are certainly a lot of people out there provided so many different ways to grow their careers and do great things. And as a result of sitting around in a classroom or sitting around in a class online and being part of that community. So I know we're getting a little long on time here. I don't want to stretch it too far. Mona, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, yes.
And David, you know me well enough that this will not go well for you. So now I got to keep it on both of you.
I'm just an innocent bystander.
Oh, you are not. So anyway, I hope this helped. Let us know when you're watching this in post if there's any questions you have. If you would like us to expand on one part of this or another, we'd be happy to do that. We could do more shows on this. But just felt like it was the right time to kick us around a little bit and let people think about it. And, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Catch us next week. We'll be live again with some special guests.
Take care.
Take care.